Good afternoon, and thanks for tuning in to SBAM's Small Business Briefing. I'm Sarah Miller, Vice President of Operations. And Brian Kelly wasn't able to join us today, but we've invited back our frequent co-host, Kelli Saunders. Kelli, welcome back to the show.
Well, thanks, Sarah, and good afternoon, everybody. Kelli Saunders, Vice President of Policy and Engagement here at SBAM. Always a pleasure to be with you. And Sarah, I think we have a new member to welcome to the ranks. So who is joining SBAM?
Yes, well, we chose one member to recognize today, and that is Deborah Cantor, a new VIP member with Ready Technologies, Inc. So welcome to Deborah and her team. All right, so Kelli, let's kick off today's program with a major win we had last week. Tell us what happened with the Invest in My Kids ballot proposal effort.
Yes, very good news coming out last week. I believe that it had happened Thursday evening in a breaking news alert from all the major news publications here in Lansing. But if you've been paying attention for the last year to a lot of our advocacy efforts, we had been raising up an awareness about a graduated income tax proposal that was seeking to make the ballot have access to the ballot, I should say, this year yet, and it would essentially impose a 5%, what they were calling surcharge, but really it is a graduated income tax to our personal income tax, which would make Michigan one of the highest states to have an income tax topping out at 9.25%. It was $1 million for joint filers and $500,000 for a single filer. And why that was important to us is because we know that many of our members file their business taxes as a pass-through entity on their personal income tax, which does not mean that they are millionaires. They do not take home $1 million and $500,000 as a single income. And so we really were very vigilant about attending State Board of Canvassers meetings, making sure to make our case for our members that this would affect. And while the language was not approved at the State Board of Canvassers, seems like many, many months ago now, they were able to still circulate petitions. And so basically last week on Thursday evening, that specific group that you had mentioned, Sarah, the Invest in My Kids group had said they were suspending operations because you do have a certain amount of time in order to collect signatures to make the ballot, and they did not see a path forward. They had collected under 250,000 signatures. You need just shy of 450,000 signatures to make the ballot, and they cited that they did not see a path forward in order to do so. I want to say that was in good part due to our efforts. We had collected a coalition of like-minded business organizations and other stakeholders that had really made sure to attend those State Board of Canvassers meetings to make our case. We did a lot of educational opportunities, not only within our own membership, but also to all those other organizations that participated. We had put together collateral. It was our organization that really brought everyone together. And so we're really proud of the efforts that we made to stop that ballot proposal for this year. They did say, the Invest in My Kids group, that they will eye to get this on the ballot in 2028. But this gives us the opportunity to lay a more firm groundwork to really inform the public on how this makes Michigan, if it were to move forward with a 5% surcharge, graduated income tax, we need to get people off of that. That it makes us an outlier. It would make us one of the most taxed states in the country. It makes us totally uncompetitive with our fellow Midwestern states that are much lower than us. And so it's incumbent that we do not forget this little exercise that we went through. The fact that they're looking to essentially get this on the ballot in 2028 does cause some concern, but we do know what we're dealing with a lot more clearly than we did this past time. And we do have a really strong foundation with organizations that obviously carried the message. And so, keep this in mind that as we move forward, we're probably going to be bringing this up again because it's really imperative for us to step to the front lines and make sure that the public understands what they're signing. But major win for us last week that this ballot proposal will not be moving forward, will not be on the ballot this year, and we will keep everyone apprised moving forward of this. So congratulations to you, to our members that did all that education. We're so very proud of our efforts and yours in order to make sure that we debunked the slogan, babies over billionaires, which is not what this was. So it's very good.
Excellent.
So, Sarah, I'm going to ask to engage you a little bit. We released our quarterly survey results today, and you do a lot of work on this front end to get our members engaged so that we can gain some sentiments about what's going on in the small business ecosystem. So, give us a general idea of what was shared in our press release today on how small business owners are feeling right now.
Sure. So, yes, Kelly, thanks for queuing that up. Every quarter, we do survey our members. We want to get their pulse on a variety of economic indicators. So, most of the questions are the same from quarter to quarter. And if you've ever taken it and wondered why, that's why. We want to gauge kind of where you are, year over year and help us understand the trends. And then other questions are kind of designed for quick insights into specific issues that are facing business owners. But for this survey, we did release the results this morning, and when we wrap this up, I'll share the press release here in the comments. But I think I would categorize the general sentiments overall as cautious and a bit strained.
So let's dive into that a little bit. We did see in the survey that people are feeling a little pinched on growth. So what's behind that?
Yeah, they really are. And so I would say that what our members or what these small business owners are telling us is that the talent pool is tightening and labor costs are rising. But what we're also seeing is that our small businesses are still investing in their teams. So this really does kind of create some pressure on growth. So overall, 66% of small business owners are reporting difficulties remaining fully staffed. But to counter this, 68% are raising wages, expanding benefits, and increasing time off. And of those three tactics, increasing wages are the most common tactic used to attract and keep their talent.
So you had brought up rising costs on the front end of that statement, and we know that that has been a common theme in the last few surveys that we've done. So amongst small businesses in the ecosystem, we really do still hear that every day. But what did the survey show? Is that still the case? Main pressure point there would be question mark?
Yes, they are. And I know you gave me these lovely questions in advance, and I actually missed this one. So I'm looking at our survey results right here. But costs definitely are a big pressure point for our members. And I would say that maybe health insurance and benefits are one of those biggest pain points.
Well, just so you know, you nailed it because that did say that in the
Yes, yes,
survey. So
yes,
Sarah's quick on her feet, which we all know this.
yeah.
But maybe
So no,
go ahead,
I
Sarah.
actually I did pull them out. So Kelly, we have 87% of the small businesses seeing higher cost. And the benefits alone, 84%. So 84% are experiencing health insurance premium increases and of up to $2,000 per employee in the last year. So let that sink in. That's a really steep increase year over year.
Yeah, these kinds of metrics are so important for us as we not only advocate for you over in the legislature in the governor's office, but also as we work with stakeholders here in Lansing that may represent those various entities. And so we knew that this was something that we have been sharing with legislators over time on a major pain point, but those metrics are so incredibly important to put dollar figures on that. So to those of you who took the survey, thank you so much for sharing that. I'm sorry that you are feeling that pain, but it does help us when we share these sentiments with folks. So, Sarah, let's go with some quick hits throughout the survey. There was a lot of interesting things that were shared, but are small business owners preparing for a recession?
They are, the majority are, with 60% making a conscious effort to prepare for a recession. And so, I'm sorry, this isn't a quick hit, but that is a factor that we take into consideration as we're talking about resources and benefits to provide for our members.
Next question, are small business owners investing in training and upskilling for their staff?
Very much so. And I think this goes back to that pressure for talent. So 93% are maintaining or increasing their investment in training and upskilling. So they really want to keep their staff trained, skilled, and ready to work.
Are small business owners turning to or adopting AI practices?
Yes, and this is a question I think we've asked in the last two or three surveys. So we're really trying to understand how our members are utilizing AI, but 62% noted that they are adopting or exploring AI in their business.
I know I'm about to hear a groan from across the state, but after a year on the implementation of the Earned Sick Time Act, how are small business owners feeling?
No surprise here. We have 59% reporting that ESTA requirements have had a negative impact on their business.
How's our optimism among our friends out there?
Right. So, our members are optimistic folks. And while this number kind of varies here and there, despite the challenges and despite some of these pain points, we do still see a 63% response and that they're feeling optimistic about long-term survival. So, all things considered, they still have a positive outlook.
Well, Sarah, thanks for sharing that. And like you said, I know you're going to drop that press release in the chat. We would really encourage you to take a look at that. Always feel free to share how you're feeling too with us here at SBAM. We really do appreciate you taking these surveys. We do pull legislators together quarterly too to share these to make sure that they know, have their finger on the pulse with what's happening out there. And we are doing that this Friday with them. And so we thank you again. Make sure you watch out for these quarterly. They do help Sarah as well and her team start to shape the narrative. And policy wise, it's definitely a huge help to Jacob and Francesca and myself.
Absolutely. All right. So, Kelly, let's move into some news from last week. It actually relates to disaster relief from last year's ice storm in northern Michigan. We're talking about this while northern Michigan is also getting quite a bit of weather today and maybe in the next coming days. But what did Governor Whitmer and President Trump come to an agreement on last week?
Yes, uh, it seems to be that Governor Whitmer is traveling quite a bit and got a notice in the news last week that she was in Washington, D.C. and had a conversation with President Trump. And for a couple different reasons, had actually gone there to talk about some of the issues that and the weather that we had had in Southwest, South Central Michigan with the tornadoes, which I'll get to in a minute, but also was really still advocating for Northern Michigan in the ice storm last year. There were some rural electric cooperatives whose power grids were devastated last year, as you recall, in Northern Michigan, and they will now be eligible for more disaster relief aid after a reversal from the Trump administration, since the governor went and talked to him quite directly about this. So after initially denying a category or federal aid covering a significant chunk of the damage that was suffered, FEMA has authorized additional funding for permanent repairs. That's the key. The funding before was not for permanent repairs. This is. And so this is an about face from when Governor Whitmer met with President Trump at the White House before and now has secured this agreement. There are two power co-ops that were hit hardest by the ice storm in northern Michigan in March of 2025. That was the Presque Isle Electric and Gas Co-op and the Great Lakes Energy Group. They had cited $305 million in damages. So while $100 million is obviously not the $305 million, it is definitely helpful. The cooperatives have already shared that they did have to raise member rates in order to help cover some of this permanent infrastructure that needed to be obviously rebuilt entirely in some instances. And so this is welcome news, obviously, for Northern Michigan. The state legislature was very excited about it. Obviously, they have been trying to find funding and supplementals for Northern Michigan, but obviously, we're feeling budget pinches here as well. And so having that federal relief will be huge, and I think will probably move quite quickly. Yes, Sarah, to your point, we are definitely thinking about our friends in the UP and Northern Michigan right now that are actually getting pummeled right now by this bomb cyclone. And so, to all of our friends up there, please be safe. Please listen to your local officials that are telling you to travel or not to travel. I am sure the state emergency was activated by the governor over the weekend to prepare for this storm. So make sure that you are also getting connected to those resources if you need them and just stay safe out there. Going back to the Southwest region that experienced tornadoes a couple weeks ago, we did on our social media channels share
Mhm.
that Treasury is trying to provide some tax relief as well to folks. And so just want to share that those that were affected in Branch, Cass, and St. Joseph counties after severe storms, obviously that first week of March, that the Department of Treasury is providing individuals and businesses within those counties opportunities to obtain special tax relief. So individual and business taxpayers residing in Branch, Cass, and St. Joe affected by those storms will have extra time to comply with the upcoming return filings or payment deadlines with penalties and interest waived. Affected taxpayers in those counties are encouraged to contact Treasury for that information. And thank you, Sarah, for dropping that in the chat so people can access that. Relief will be provided through the filing and payment extensions to applicable state tax deadlines that are due on or before April 30th. And this includes the annual return filing and payment deadline for individuals, corporations, and certain flow-through entities. And so if you are in those regions and you are affected, please make sure that you do contact Treasury. You do have to contact them directly to help you walk through that, but there are services available to you to help on that front. And again, we're still thinking about you all in Southwest and Central Michigan. So very sorry for everything that you've experienced too. Please do stay tuned to our channels. We will do our best to share those resources with you as they become available, as we want to make sure that we can be that convener for you. So stay safe, everybody out there.
Yes, yes, I echo everything Kelly said. All right, we do have a few more pieces to cover today. Next up, Kelly, is some legislation that passed in the House of Representatives last week that you and Jacob have been working on alongside a coalition that we're part of. So can you tell us a little bit more?
I believe that Brian and Jacob have both gone over the open and obvious doctrine. This was actually a Michigan Supreme Court case in 2023 that was reversed. And think of it like a slip and fall case, essentially. There was a law in the books before that if there was something obvious, either indoors or outdoors of a premises, that you could avoid being hurt, that those lawsuits were dismissed because you should be able to use the ability to make smart choices to not step on ice, or if there's a puddle on the floor to go around it. This Supreme Court case in 2023 that was reversed essentially removed those protections for respective those premises. And so now I'm sure you're seeing this when you're driving on the highways or even when you're online. There is an outside firm that has taken up every billboard in the state of Michigan to essentially say, we'll take up your case and sue the pants off of whatever premises, this person has fallen or gotten hurt. And so this is huge, obviously, for our owners that have storefronts, retail, but also those that may, own buildings and have tenants. And so we have been working with Representative Nyer in the House of Representatives, House Bill 4582, which essentially restores that doctrine that had been long shielded property owners from liability and hazards that were considered obvious that we just went over. And the bill would prevent trespassers from suing landowners if they are injured or someone on someone else's property. And so love this quote by Representative Nyer. Just want to share small businesses. Number one thing he says, small businesses, firms, retailers, restaurants, and property owners across Michigan are facing legal uncertainty. And this bill, few, if any, meritless claims are being dismissed early and liability costs continue to rise across the state. And so the Michigan Alliance for Legal Reform is a coalition that we are a part of. We've been working on this legislation for the last few months. There are 45 organizations that are part of this. This is kind of our first push to get this back into place, and it did pass with bipartisan support, 58-48 in the House. And so we are hopeful that it will go to the Senate, that we can have good, healthy conversations about how to protect our small business owners in this space and make sure that they're not essentially taken out by legal issues because somebody chose to not look around and make sure that they're being safe. Again, we always say this with legislation. We're not trying to protect bad actors that don't take care of their properties and do what they're supposed to do. But we also know in Michigan, where we have lots of snow and lots of, things that melt, that things aren't always caught right away. And so let's do the right thing by making sure we protect everyone in order to be healthy, safe, and happy, and making sure that our small businesses thrive. And so we are very proud of that victory last week, and off to the Senate it goes for consideration, and we'll be on the front lines of it.
All right, let's talk about another issue with the House of Representatives. They unveiled some energy rewrites. What's going on?
Yeah, so if you recall back in 2023 when the Dem trifecta was in place, there was a complete energy rewrite, a real look towards clean energy, and we were against that package. It had a lot of benchmarking and technologies in the actual plan itself that were not tested nor sound, and we believe in a diverse energy portfolio here in Michigan and through our policy councils, where we want to make sure that we are utilizing energy to the best of our ability to what's offered here right now. And there's no problem with looking to the future, but technologies need to be tested and sound. And so the Michigan House of Representatives, Republicans specifically, are looking to do away with many of the state's clean energy standards that were put in place in 2023. It's a little bit of an overhaul, not a complete overhaul of what was put in place then. It does actually harken back and look to 2016 when the last energy rewrite was put in place, and actually repeals some of those pieces on a limit to energy waste. And so committee chair Representative Pauline Wenzel, who's from Watervliet down in Southwest Michigan, is the main sponsor of the package. And she said that these bills will focus instead on making energy cheaper and more reliable. It does restructure utility planning, so the Michigan Public Service Commission does approve and evaluates how the grid performs under peak demand and extreme conditions, which obviously we're seeing a lot more of right now. And then the package sponsors are also criticizing grants to nonprofits and local governments to help residential customers adapt to their own power usage, citing it as wasted money. Now, obviously, the Democrats are pushing back on that. Many of them passed that energy reform in 2023, and they're really wanting to stick to the clean energy path. They said that the 2023 mandates were ahead of its time, helping diversify the generation portfolio in Michigan and making sure that producing the cheapest option available and have everything on the table to make sure that they can deliver the lowest possible rates. And so we have not taken a stance on these bills yet. We have a policy council, energy and infrastructure, that looks at legislation. If it looks to be something similar to what we had in place of 2023, I would anticipate that our policy council will make a recommendation, but it could be that we like some and not others. And so just know that we want to bring this to your attention. Not sure that the Senate is on board in any way due to the fact that that Senate that's in place passed the 2023 package. And so this could be, I will say, like the start of a conversation maybe for future legislatures, but maybe not this one given the makeup at this time. So that is the energy report out for today.
All right, thanks, Kelly. I think we have one more event to talk about before we let you go today, and that is our final stop on the road to 2026, at least for now. And that is next Monday, March 23rd, with Congressman John James. So if you've been paying attention, we've been talking about Election Watch 2026 for over a year now. And here we are with our final stop with our candidate series. So that's next Monday, the 23rd, in Oakland County. It is a lunchtime event with John James, and we would really love it if you would join us. So you can learn about the details at sbam.org/events. All right, Kelly, thanks for joining me today and bringing our members all this great news. We will be back here next Monday at 3:00.
Always a pleasure to be with you. Hope you guys have a great week. And remember, to all our friends in Southern and Northern Michigan, be safe and pay attention to our channels. We'll make sure to share news when we can. Have a good week.